Well kids, we're back. As the first video did so well, I might as well keep this going and share more of my opinions that are going to make heavy music fans mad. As the first video had comments that did not resort to name calling, I was very appreciative of that. Let's see if that happens with this video with some even more spicy takes. Alright, here's the first one that I know is going to piss off the most people. I prefer Judas Priest more than Iron Maiden. And I love the 70s era, I love the 80s era, I love Turbo Lover, I don't care what anyone thinks. And they follow it up with their best album, Painkiller. I do not like Jugulator, I do not like the other Ripper album, but there's only two albums that I don't like from Judas Priest that are outside of Rob Halford, and there's only one Halford album I don't enjoy, and that's Nostradamus. I love the title track, hate every other song on it. Whereas with Iron Maiden, there's a lot more that I don't like. They make a lot more of the pretentious prog over the last 15-20 years or so, basically everything after Dance of Death. And it's funny, Dance of Death was actually my first Maiden album, and I still have some love and affection for that album, and I still appreciate a good handful of Maiden albums. But I think Halford's the better singer, I think they have the better backing band, and they're more consistently awesome than Maiden has. Where maybe Maiden is more theatrical, they put on a better live show, whatever the case is, I will always prefer Judas Priest. Yeah, this one might come as a shock, but basically, after the early 80s, basically the mid-80s all the way up to Vapor Trails in the early 2000s, I do not like that era of Rush. And even though Rush started to get back into the right way of things after Roll the Bones, it wasn't until Vapor Trails that I got back into them. But I love 70s Rush. 70s Rush rules. From Vapor Trails all the way to Clockwork Angels, sorry. I love every single album that they did. But yeah, that in-between era, which is so strange because I love Subdivisions, which is a lot more focused on the synth. But basically everything after that is just something that never gravitated towards me. I've tried, but I just prefer when Rush is guitar, bass, drums, and vocals, of course. And I do love synth bass, I do love synth keyboards when they're done right. But Rush just never really seemed to do it for me during this era. And I know that's strange for a lot of people, and I'm gonna get a lot of feedback telling me how wrong I am. And trust me, I'm well aware of this. I'm sorry I can't get into it. I just prefer 70s Rush, early 80s Rush, and 2000s to the end Rush. That's just who I am. Yeah, this one's pretty simple. Ghost does not suck. I love all 5 albums so far. I think their EPs are fun, whether it's B-sides or covers. I've seen them do 2 live shows, one at Station 4 in St. Paul, Minnesota back in early 2012, and I think it was one of the best live experiences I've ever saw at a place that held about 400 to 800 people depending on the situation. And then I saw them open for Maiden back in 2017, something in there. Whenever it was Ghost and Iron Maiden, I apologize for not remembering. But I honestly thought that Ghost was better than Maiden. But yeah, seriously, I love Ghost, I love them from the beginning, I love their whole shtick, I love that it's fun, campy music. If you love fun, campy horror, why can't you enjoy that in your music as well? I don't understand. I don't understand also how it sounds like Nickelback, which is very confusing to me. Scooby-Doo? Yeah, it can be campy and fun, who cares? I said back when I saw them at Station 4 that they were going to be the next big arena band, and I got laughed at. People thought I was so stupid, they thought the shtick would be over by the next album, and once you know it, they just skyrocketed to arenas and occasionally a stadium. So who was right? Me. Who's not making any money off of that? Me. But still, I was right. And if they weren't any good, they wouldn't be popular. Not to say that only popular bands are good, but Ghost does it right. They change things up every album, they show different sides of themselves, and leading into another point that I'll be doing next, bands don't need to change or change back to make you happy. It's 2023. Bands that are in heavy realms don't make money. There is such a select few that actually make enough money, or even break even when they tour or make an album, that they don't need to satisfy you. Every artist should make the music that they want to make, otherwise it stops being art, it becomes a product. If you want that product, fine, but it's not art anymore. It's not music anymore, and it's just hard to feel any other way about that. And Ghost is a prime example of that. They do what they want to do with every album. Sometimes they get heavier, sometimes they get lighter. For as many fuck-ups as they made in Metallica, they make the music that they want to make. And there's going to be the people that love what they do no matter what they do. There's going to be those that hate them for what they do no matter what they do. But they make the music that they want to make. And that's something respectable. I don't enjoy it anymore, but I can respect it. OPETH is another great example. They didn't want to make the progressive melodic death metal anymore. They wanted to make their 60s and 70s prog-inspired evil music, which is A-okay with me, because A, the old stuff is always going to be there. B, if they still make some music that I enjoy, which I'm going to check out every album to see if there is something I can enjoy, I'm going to be happy with it. And C, if I don't like the music that they're making, there's bands inspired by OPETH that I enjoy very, very much. And to also go into my next point in this big old segue moment that I'm doing here, here's a jagged little pill for you to swallow. Just because something's first doesn't make it the best. It doesn't matter the music. It can be heavy music, it can be almost anything in life, but I can apply it here to heavy music. Black Sabbath is widely considered to be the first metal band. They weren't the first band to write heavy songs. You can go all the way back into classical music and look up heavy music. You can look at blues musicians who wrote some really heavy riffs. You can go back even a few years before Black Sabbath came out and hear some incredibly heavy songs in the particular style of like the psychedelic rock, hard rock elements. But Black Sabbath is widely considered to be the first metal band. That does not make them the best. That is to say, every band that came before them shouldn't have even tried because they're not the best. And I know it's that competition mindset, and it sucks. That stuff needs to stop. It's art. It's not a competition. And people are going to enjoy things more than other things. And yes, there are so many bands that are inspired by Black Sabbath. There's so many bands inspired by Metallica. There's so many bands that are inspired by new genres that are created. And that's the point. It's evolution. Black Sabbath is an evolution of the blues and psychedelic rock that they were listening to at the time. That's to say, like, Blue Cheer is better than Black Sabbath because they wrote heavy stuff before Black Sabbath. See how that doesn't make sense? I hope it does. And that's not to say that only new music is good. No, it's a case-by-case situation. Some older bands are always going to be superior to some newer bands, and some newer bands are kicking older bands' asses up and down the street. It's case-by-case situation, and the only way to prove that is in the ear of the beholder. You decide what's good and what's bad. Don't let others decide it for you. It's up to you. Now, let's switch things up a bit. I could see a lot of people being upset with this one, and some people I think are just misinformed. I enjoy Edge of Sanity vastly more than OPETH these days. And I will say I heard OPETH first. They were my gateway into growls and screams in music. Before, I didn't want to listen to metal that had anything to do with that. And then OPETH's Deliverance changed my mind on that. It took me 6 months, half a year, to get into that album, and when I finally did, all of it made sense, and here we are, many years later. But really, Edge of Sanity, I just love what they do more. Whether it's the straight up death metal, whether it's the progressive death metal, even just progressive metal. I feel like Dan Swano and company did it better. And sure, the production's a bit raw. It doesn't have those big, long, epic feelings that OPETH has on occasion. I understand that, but Dan Swano writes some of the best lyrics that are pen to paper in progressive death metal. Crimson 1 and 2 are two of the best progressive death metal albums ever made. Purgatory Afterglow is one of the best progressive death metal albums ever made as well. And the early day Edge of Sanity is some of the best death metal ever made. Just take the whole discography, there's not a clunker in the bunch. And with OPETH, Well, they changed their sound, going from black metal into progressive death metal into the 60s and 70s prog era. And that's not going to be for everybody. But if you like that particular OPETH sound, what came before it, in this particular case, Edge of Sanity, I feel did a vastly superior job. And it took me a long time to realize it, but once it clicked, everything made sense. And finally, one more opinion to surely piss off the true and cult of all of you. My favorite Emperor album, in my humblest opinion, the best Emperor album, is Prometheus, the Discipline of Fire and Demise. The most over-the-top symphonic black metal album of the Emperor discography, and the last Emperor album, probably ever. And it's really more of an Isan solo album than it is an Emperor album. And you can really hear that when you listen to the first couple Isan solo albums. This really feels like the prototype for what those albums were. It's a lot more symphonic, it's a lot more proggy, it goes in a lot of different directions. Whereas the albums before this were straight up pure raw black metal, and they occasionally got better and better. I feel like the Emperor discography kind of goes backwards, where I feel like they ended at their strongest point, and, you know, that takes a lot to be able to do that. And then you go back with every subsequent album from there, and I think that's how you rank them from best to worst. And I love all four of them. Look, I'm wearing a Wrath of the Tyrant shirt right now. I love every album, but Prometheus is the best one. It's my style. It's progressive, symphonic black metal with some avant-garde moments, and Isan just being Isan. And of course, my favorite Emperor song, In a Wordless Chamber, is on this album, so that also helps as well. This is an underrated album. A lot of people look at this as the watershed moment, and you know, talking about OPETH, that's funny to bring up Watershed, but they also jumped the shark on this album, which I totally disagree with. And seriously, if you love progressive black metal, if you love symphonic black metal, if you love black metal, or if you just know Isan for his solo work, and you've never actually checked out Emperor, check out Prometheus. It might be up your alley if you give it a shot. And there you go, folks, my humble opinions that will make heavy music fans angry because, as we all know, metal fans are elitists and gatekeepers. But seriously, folks, whether you like my opinions, don't like my opinions, just want to tell me off, all of that, let me know down below. And of course, like, comment, share, subscribe, all that stuff. Let's get this page to 1,000 subscribers. I've been at this for way too long to not have 1,000, so let's actually make it happen this time. And until the next video in this series where I will make heavy music fans mad, or any other video that I put up here on the Heavy Debriefings YouTube channel, this is Josh Runquist saying, see ya.